Hey everyone, welcome to the channel. All Things Middle-earth here with the video looking at the commander Boromir, who actually sits a lot closer to the top of the list in terms of tier 1 commanders than I initially thought. So stay tuned, we're going to break down some different builds for him in just 1 second. Alright, so we're going to start out with an R5 build, and as always, I'll be referencing the spreadsheet that is put together by different members of our Discord. So if you want to join the Discord and join those conversations, that's linked down below as well as the spreadsheet. But let's go ahead and get into his R5 build, which is going to be his best build, which we're going to rank at a B+. Starting out in this build, you're going to go into the Horn of Gondor, 15 points, which is going to give you in the first 3 rounds. The allied army and commander are going to deal an extra 20% damage, and Boromir is going to get an extra 15 might, which in turn is going to help him and the army deal more damage. So a fantastic skill there that is going to get him and the army dealing some more damage in the early rounds. Next, we're going to go into Well Prepared, which is for melee units. They're going, when hit by enemies' normal attacks within range, they're going to perform a counterattack that deals 21% damage. Next up on the list is going to be Air. We're going to max this out at 15 points. It's going to give us 7 deep defense per round, which is going to stack once per round, and we're also going to get a focus 15 at the max level effect here. Next, we're going to go into Nobility, which is going to be for men. They're going to receive an extra 21% damage on their attacks. And then lastly, for this build, we're going to go into Warden, which right now where I have my Boromir, which is Respect 5 at level 42, and he has been imparted Wisdom, so he has the extra 4 skill points from that. I have 7 out of 15 here. Ideally, you would max this out as well. This is going to give you up to, I believe it gets up to 75% chance to evade the first instance of damage, and the max level effect here is going to be HP plus 2. If you happen to have extra points after this point, you can either go into defensive stance or lower defenses. They're both marked on the sheet as a tied for 6th option, but those are kind of extra if you happen to have him at a higher respect, or if you do get him up to level 50. So I think point-wise, if I get mine to 50, I will max out Warden, which would be Respect 5 and level 50, which is a very, very good spot for him. But again, this is going to be a fantastic build, and as you're going to see when we talk about the different troops and items that we're going to put on Boromir to make this even better, this is a very, very fantastic build for him. Next up for Boromir is going to be the R3 build. This is going to be starting with 15 points into Warden, which I misspoke earlier. It is a 100% chance of evading the first instance of damage, not 75%, so was misinformed there. But this is a 100% chance of avoiding the first instance of damage with 2 extra HP for melee units. After Warden, we're going to go into High Warden of the White Tower, which is a skill for Boromir dealing damage. He's going to, against 2 enemy targets, deal 175% physical damage. And then the max level effect here is going to increase the damage caused by the skill and prioritize melee targets. We're going to follow that up with Swing and then Disarm, which are 2 damage dealing skills for Boromir as well. Disarm does have a extra target's next attack deals less physical damage modifier on that one, so we're going to do that there. And then lastly for this build, we're going to go 15 points if possible into Air, which is the defensive skill we saw from the last build. And then any extra points from here on out are going to go into Nobility. So again, ideally, if you had enough points, you would have Air and Nobility maxed out, but you are looking at a pretty high respect and totally max out in terms of level 50 for Boromir. So I think Nobility would be the one that you would not have if you needed to, but ideally going into Air if you can there. But that's the R3 build for Boromir. Okay, and now we come to the R1 build for Boromir. If you do have him at R0 or R1, you can still get some decent use out of this build. You are going to start out with the High Warden of the White Tower, followed by Swing and Disarm. Again, we talked about those in the previous build. For the R3 build, so you're going to run these first, and then you're going to go down into Air, followed by Nobility. And if you happen to have extra points, again, if you have Boromir at level 50, you might have a little bit extra. But if you are running R1, because you only can run the R1, you're not going to have enough points to go into Gallant for him. So you're just probably going to have Air and a little bit into Nobility. But that is the R1 build for Boromir. Ranking wise for all these builds, the R5 build, I think we ranked at a B+, stepping down to a C for the R3, and I think either a C or a C- for the R1. There's not a huge difference between the R1 and the R3, it seems, but the R5 is where Boromir really shines. And I do have to give a shout out to Archangel, who is my one of my mods on Discord as well as on Twitch. who is a huge Boromir fan and pretty much single-handedly walked me through all the explanations for Boromir and how he uses him. So huge shout out to him, because my server here, I'm getting slapped around in this corner here and have had a very hard time getting out of my settlement and doing testing. But that's beside the point, so huge shout out to him for helping me get all this together. Next, for Boromir, we're going to look at the items we can use for him. I do have some pretty basic things on him right now, but I'm going to give you some suggestions, and there are some gold and purple suggestions on the spreadsheet for him. He is a might-focused commander, so again, these are not the end-all be-all for suggestions. There are some kind of best ones, I think. But again, when you have more might, you're going to deal more damage. We want Boromir dealing damage. We want his troops dealing damage. I'm going to show you a troop comp in a second as well. So we want to focus on might as much as possible. So starting out, we're going to have the Cutlass with melee might. This is one that is actually, I'm not even going to select a gold option for this, because I think it is just the best option for Boromir. With this Cutlass, we're going to get some extra attack for melee units, which is who we're going to be bringing in our army composition, which I'll explain in a second. But that army attack and the might on it's going to be fantastic for the Cutlass. So that's going to be, I think, the best weapon for Boromir to use. Next up for armor, for the purple options, we have either Scale Mail or Scout's Mail. The effect is not super end-all be-all. I think on the Scout's Mail, there is an avoidance ability, so that one's not bad. But again, either one of those, just with their might they have, is going to be fine. And then the gold option there is going to be the Plate of the Citadel. Next, for the head accessory, or just the helmet, we're going to have a full helm with Inspire. You could also use the Arnor Casque, and then the Cask of Pride is going to be the gold suggestion there. Again, any helmets focused on might are going to be good. The full helm with Inspire, I think, is going to be the best one in terms of with effect. But for the most part, if you have these things fully upgraded and you get the might from them, you're going to do solid. And lastly, for the accessories, these are all gold or better suggestions. So obviously just do what you have. If you don't have one of these, it's okay. You can run really anything else if you have something with might. A little bit of healing is not going to hurt. But the Fiddle of the Eldest with Cleanse, the Night Star with Tactical Mark or Opportune Strike, and the Horn of Gondor, Boromir's R10 item, which is actually the first time I have suggested an R10 as a part of the build. Obviously, these things are still very, very expensive, but I do think Boromir's is one of the better ones that I've seen. It gives him might, which he needs. It gives army defense, which would be great for men, which you're going to see. We're going to run with him in a second. Speed, solid. And then the Gondor's Inspiration, the allied units at round 6 and onward are going to deal an extra 10% damage, starting out up to 50% fully refined, which would be nuts. But with his kit being a kind of early round nuke build with the extra damage he has, this makes him a lot more viable for longer periods of times with this. So I think it's actually a very solid R10 item. Again, I'm not suggesting you go well out on this, but if you like Boromir and you are trying to find a commander who is probably going to see a lot of benefit from a very good accessory, I think Boromir is a solid choice for one of those. So that is going to be the last suggestion for the accessory. Again, obviously just using what you have is going to be just fine. And now lastly, for the troop composition for Boromir, we are going to run equal thirds Cavaliers, Cataphracts, and Dunedain. So, and when I say thirds, I mean thirds in terms of the command. So obviously the Dunedain are 100 troops per command right up here, and the mounted troops we have are 50 per command. So you're going to have actually half the amount for the mounted, but in terms of command, they both have an equal amount of command. So 1,200, 1,200, and 2,400, where I'm sitting at 72 command for my option there. But this is going to be the suggested troop comp. He's going to do fantastic with this. There are a few qualifiers if depending on the tier 4 factions you're playing as. Number one, if you're playing as Gondor and have the Swan Knights, you can sub them out for the Cataphract. So just think, basically you're just going to sub out for whoever the faction is you're playing as. So the Gondor is going to sub out the Gondor troop. If you're playing as Rohan and have the Marshal, sub out the Rohan tier 4 below the Marshal, the Cavalier. And then if you're playing as Erebor, you can actually run a comp which is half Cavalier and half of the Iron Warriors. So again, I feel like a lot of commanders are best with one faction, or they don't really need a faction. I think Boromir's fantastic here because every troop running here is a tier 3 troop, so these troops are available to everyone that is playing at least as a good alignment, or if you're playing non-role play, you would also have access to everyone. But these troops are available to everyone. But then there are also 3 kind of complementary options for tier 4 units, which is really nice. So you can kind of get some more unique use out of your Boromir in 3 out of the 6 good factions. So there's a good chance that you might be playing as one of those and could use the tier 4 with some other good troops and see some really good results with Boromir. And in terms of factions that is going to be most beneficial for Boromir, Again, I'm just going to suggest Rohan, Gondor, and Erebor since they are tier 4s that can be used with Boromir to pretty good effect. I will say if you do end up using the Iron Warriors, there's a note on the Nobility perk on the spreadsheet. Nobility gives extra damage to men. So if you do end up running Erebor with the Iron Warriors and the Cavaliers, you're going to drop Nobility for one of the next skills on the list, which I think is going to be Defensive Stance or Lower Defenses. So you don't necessarily need to save Nobility just for the Cavaliers, because it's probably not going to be worth it in that instance. But again, you could look at Erebor, you could look at Gondor or Rohan, kind of whatever you prefer. Again, thinking through the entire list of things, looking at what troops you can have access to first. There's not really one that's going to really jump out as a better one, but you can just get some extra use from any of those factions, which is, I think, a pretty cool and unique thing about Boromir's kit. He's not very limited, but he can see some uniqueness in certain areas. So again, that's going to do it for our Boromir video today. Hope you found it useful. The spreadsheet's linked down below, as well as a Discord. So if you ever have any questions, feel free to hop over there, and we'd be happy to help you with what we can. Again, huge shout out to Archangel, who pretty much just walked me through a commander I had not used very extensively. Even tried on stream earlier today to get Boromir out there, and just he got himself into a very quick 1v12 situation with some angry Lothlorians. So I was not able to test really extensively these different options. So got some great feedback from him. So check out the spreadsheet, and as always, I'll see you in a future video.